Hi, we're back. It's E.B. Dawson and J.E. Perazzi to talk spoilers for the Creation of Jack series. So if you've read the books, we're going to have a little fun, hopefully, as we prepare for book 3 to come out. So I thought I'd start it off really fun by asking Jill, for book 1, who was your favorite side character, if you can remember?
Well, my favorite in all the books is Sutton. And I know I should probably be like, Drews, yay! But, it's a different relationship, and I've always had this, I've always been a sucker for, the big brother. And Sutton is just, walking the line between, okay, Sutton, you're a little bit too much there. And then also just, this really relaxed big brother type who's just, he protects her, but he doesn't, shelter her, and he doesn't baby her, but he understands her. So even in a way that Drews doesn't, and even in the first book, and we all know what happens because this is the spoiler one. Yes. He dies, and I was like, my poor heart, where did it go? oh, well, Sutton took it. So yes,
I'm glad you like
always been like
Sutton, because I mean, obviously he was super important to me and to Jack, and
yeah,
I mean, I was hoping most people didn't feel he was just a plot device, you know what I mean? Because then in book 2, spoilers, because this is the spoiler one, when he comes back and it's like, I was hoping people would be just excited as me, because I think, he does play that role in her life, so. That's good.
I was like, she did it, and she did it so well, and it didn't seem like this, Marvel superhero. Yeah, just oh yeah, by the way, he's still alive, and nobody dies in this. And I think probably one of my favorite scenes of the series is, after she's been blinded, and she's adjusting, and Sutton is just okay, here you are, we're going to make breakfast, and, he's not, I said, he doesn't baby her. He's not okay, I'm going to cook it for you, and you just sit there and relax. No, he's you have to live life like this now, so let me show you what to do, and I'm not going to let you just sit back and cry about it, and I love that about him. I think he's just, like I said, I'm a sucker for the big brother character, and that's definitely what he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's, definitely a character I want to explore more, and he does have some moments in book 3 that were fun to play out, and I think draw some things out of him, but, because you think about what he went through, and there's a part of him that's as broken as Jack is, but he doesn't show it as much, and I think there's a bit of that, I'm okay facade, and I don't think, because she needs him, she doesn't see how broken he is, She sees some of it, but she doesn't see all of it, and he doesn't let many people see all of it, so he's just definitely an interesting guy, and he's got some great development in the 3rd book, so you'll have to read it.
Yeah, and he's always, and I think that it works perfectly the way you do it, that, he's not always around her, because he is so charismatic and such a leader, and she has a strong leadership ability, but not a strong desire for leadership, so I feel like if he was there, she would just be like, okay, I don't have to, and walk away. But because he's not there, she can't depend on him and his charisma and his take charge attitude, and she has to step up a little more.
That's one of the things about her character, is that she would very much love to hand off the reins to someone else for leadership. That's her constant.
Yeah. And tries to.
And I think much of my job as the author, and the way the book's circumstances in her life, and that's what Hajar saw in her too, and that's why he put her in so many situations where she couldn't have someone to pass it off to, because he saw, you got potential, you're just never going to reach it on your own, because you're content to play second fiddle and be in your own little world, which she would if she could. So so it's interesting, because Hajar saw that in her, and Sutton has the charisma and has the leadership, but he's also got I think he's a bit impulsive, and he's got some other weaknesses that he tends to. Anyway, so we'll see some of that in the 3rd book, but it's definitely an interesting dynamic. And then he, so it's interesting. So that's Sutton. There's lots of other characters too, but that's fun. I'm glad.
There are, yes.
I love.
And
yeah,
you know,
go
when
ahead.
you're talking about Jack. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You.
I was just gonna say, I love that balance that you create with her. That I think it's really hard for authors to create any kind of balance, but for me, it's one of the best parts of a book when you can kind of have both and.
Mm-hmm.
And with Jack, she is an incredible leader, and she's very responsible. Like when she sees something that needs to be taken care of, she takes care of it, and yet at the same time, you make it very clear that she doesn't want to have to be responsible for that. She doesn't, and it's not that she's like, oh, I'm not a good leader, or oh, I'm not. She just doesn't want it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not that she's down on herself and hates herself. She just doesn't want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that balance you create without making her a weak character or anything.
Yay! Thanks. I love it too. It's fascinating to explore. And that's why, I mean, I think Jill teases me about this, but I do have a lot of characters because I love the balance in each of them, and then I love playing them off each other, and that's why. And I couldn't, as I do this series now, I have the time to explore more of them more because, you know, book one.
Yeah.
And a few people responded with book one, like, oh, I really wanted to get to know the others better. And I was like, patience, children. You'll get to know them in book 2 and 3. Yeah. So book 2, I think I really got, I mean, I introduced some new ones too because I couldn't help myself. We got Jessie and Veronica, who I love them both, and they're so fun to play with. And then you get to know, you get to know Druce a bit more. You get to know Gregson and Crafton a little bit more. But really, in book 3, you're going to see a lot more of Gregson and Crafton and their relationship, and I love it.
Yes.
So
I love it.
It's
all of the side characters really shine in this, because I know I said Sutton was my favorite. We're right there when you mentioned Veronica. I was like, ooh, Veronica. So I think if there's a third favorite, it's probably her. But you know, I don't want to put Druce out in the cold because he's probably in that position too.
He's not offended at all.
I love all my babies.
He's not offended if he's not your favorite or, you know, top 5. He's just so wonderfully reliable. Veronica, yes. I love Veronica. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and she has some great moments in book 3. I think I know some readers like her. I think when I wrote, I was like, I wonder how people are going to respond to her. But she's just a wonderful foil for Logan.
She is.
So it's fun to play with
without
that and draw it out. Yeah, and it's fun to do. I mean, I realized after the first book, I need more female characters. I was fine with, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone complain that it's not. I mean, it's mostly a male cast in the first book, and there's reasons for that, I think, and just the circumstantial of what's happening.
Yeah.
So that's why I was able to pull in more as I go along, which is also super fun. So Veronica is, she's so complex.
She is.
But she doesn't drive a lot of action, so it's interesting to weave her in with the team, and I think she has an interesting role, and I think she felt very comfortable on the station in that role, and so now in the third book she has a different role, and she struggles a bit with what that looks like, and then Jessie Stevens is my other wonderful female main side. And I love her.
Love her. And I love hate. When I say love, hate comes first, and then it's love, because, but yes.
She's annoying and prideful, and yeah.
She reminds me of a lot of the things I hate about myself. That's probably what it is.
She needs some love. She's I think she became...
She's that grumpy, cynical...
She was she jumped into the sequel before, I think, Veronica even. She was in one of my first drafts. She was there. And then when I rewrote Into the Void, I kind of cut a lot of her role, but I was like, she has to be there, so I kind of had to reimagine her. But from the early on, I knew she was going to be a character in there, because she's also important for Logan's character development. But there's book 3, there's things that can happen with her too. There are things.
There are. Well, I want to talk about Druce real quick.
Okay.
Because we see pretty dark side of Druce in this one. Like we've gotten hints in the other books, and it's not like he's any less reliable, but I feel like we saw a little bit of a darker side with him in this book than in previous books.
That's interesting that you say that. I mean, I guess I can see why you say that, but it is yeah. That's interesting that you say that. I'm glad that you say that, though, because I think it's very true to his character, because I was wondering at one point, because he talks in the first book, he talks very briefly about the person he used to be a little bit, and it's like that he hints that he didn't like that person very much, that was a dark, but then all you see from him really as a character is the good, and that's kind of, I think he sees himself as worse than he is, and other people see the good in him, but he's put in a position in book 3 that is really challenging for him, where I think more of that comes out. And there's some big struggle there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just there's struggle and conflict and wonderful things, but he doesn't think so.
Yeah. I was going to say, some of the best things we see coming out of Druce is how he treats Jack and his relationship with Jack. From the very first book, his, support and love of her. And in book 3, he's just put in a position where she doesn't need him as much. Or at least he seems to feel like that. And I don't want to give away any spoilers as to why, but, just different circumstances just put him in a position where he's not showing that side of himself as much. And we're seeing more of other relationships that have been hinted in previous books that just kind of pull him backwards a little bit. And it's not, he's not any less of a good man or any less of a leader, but I just really like that exploration of his character that I feel like opens him up to a lot more in coming books. So
yeah, it's almost like the momentum is lost, and he very much finds his identity in, I don't think he would admit this, but I think he very much finds his identity in helping people. And I think, I feel like Jesse pointed that out in book 2. I'm trying to remember. And he got real mad at her.
Yeah.
Or somebody did. Maybe it was Colby. But about how he feels like he has to save people. I think that's part of what he finds his identity in. So there's very much part of Jack that has needed saving. But in this book, yeah, like you said, there's circumstantially, it's like there's less of that. And so he kind of has to look at who he is and what he stands for, and aside from her, which is very interesting. It's true. So
yeah,
it's good. Yep. And then there's the wonderful thing that I did at the end of book 2 that I'm sure you're all wondering about if you read it, that you mentioned earlier, Jill, that poor Jack is blind.
Poor Jack.
So
poor Jack. Which, I mean, it gives us the wonderful interaction with Wolf. And I don't even like dogs, but I like the robotic dog. So maybe it's just because I'm a cyborg and robot lover. So I'm like, hey, robotic wolf.
If you were thinking, oh, Jack can't be the main character anymore because she's blind, you're wrong. So
wrong.
It's
like
good.
That would slow down Jack.
Yeah, that's not going to slow down Jack. I'm going to make a t-shirt about it, about you can't stop Jack or something. She definitely has some challenges coming into book 3. And surprisingly, that's like the least of them. Being blind and not having her sight is the least of her problems. So. But I love the added vulnerability of it for her. There's a lot that plays into, and there's a lot that happens that's good. But it's I think when I was finishing that book, I was like, can I really do this? Can I get away with this and pull this off? And is this unfair? But it was like one of those moments, and I have a lot of these, where sometimes I write a little bit both ways to kind of see it out. And to me, it was like, I can't make this a convenient end for her. Like there has to be, because I think part of what defines her story is the loss. And as much as that hurts her, when she rises above it, that's what defines. So it's another thing that she loses, but again, it just shows her character of how she adapts to it. And that's kind of a huge theme of all the books. And the fact that, I mean, to her, it's not the most important thing in the world. I mean, yeah, it's hard, but it's not the most important thing in the world. So I knew she needed to live with the consequences of that. And I knew it would be fascinating to watch that. So,
yeah. And I love seeing how you use a disabled character, and a lot of it is your writing style that allows it to still work so well, but how you use the disabled character in a high action story like this. Like, people don't do that, and there's a reason why you don't do that, because, you know, a high action scene with a character who's lame or blind or, you know, whatnot, it's difficult. You know, I'm finding my own struggles. You know, I have a side character who's deaf in one of my books, and even that's just hard enough. So I was really impressed by how you work that. And then I think another thing that feeds into, I loved how you use that in the political sense, that you build everything in your book so politically. Let's retry that sentence. How you add the political stuff into your book and how that factored into it. So I don't know if we can just talk about that a little bit, just the new politics in this book.
Oh man, it's
I think that's a very interesting part.
It's so great, because I feel like in one sense it's much like each book, like I said, it's kind of incremental. It's much more intense and widespread, but there's another sense in which it's much more personal, like the politics in the book. And some of the journeys, and one reason is some of the journeys of the characters are directly follow and reflect the politics. So you see it on a small scale between characters, and then you see the greater world is also responding in these ways, which is really interesting. And then you understand now why humanity is making these choices, because you see the characters also making these choices. So it's kind of like a parallel that's fascinating. I think for me, it's just a natural progression of what I've set up in a lot of senses, of the kind of world I've set up and what happened in book 2. And it's like, how does humanity respond to those events? This is very much we're going into outer space. This is the beginnings of it. You know, it's not a well-established. Yeah. So, you know, how does humanity tackle everything that comes up? And they freak out a lot of times because they're like, what's happening? Which I think is true to the world we live in. Like, what would happen if suddenly this happened and we had this technology? You know, I think sometimes what you see in sci-fi books, and this is one thing I might say against some of those classics that I love, but they make it seem like a seamless transition almost into like a more, and I feel like humanity would just freak out over and over along the way and do stupid things, and but it's not all bad, and it's not all freaking out, and it's not stupid either, because there are people who then also stand up and say no, you know, and set a good example. So there's just the interesting dynamic. I think the same as with every character I write. There's the weaknesses that are obvious and the emotional flaws, but then there's also the strengths. So we see that, I think, from humanity in a broad perspective, that as we're moving forward into new technology, and after the events of book 2, where it was like the station separated, and just some of the scares they had there, how would people respond in a believable way in big groups and also small groups. So it's a multifaceted political landscape, but it's really fun.
I think I've said before, you know, I write more hard science fiction, but your science fiction isn't soft. It may have soft science, but it's hard psychologically. Like, it's realistic in that sense. So while there may not be a lot of details on the science side, which it still works out beautifully and believably, the people and their interactions is very believable. And I think that's one of my favorite things about, especially in this book. I loved seeing how each person you set up with their own motivations. And then when they started to come into the group, they kind of formed this group think that you could definitely see how there was like two solid, clear signs, because even though everyone had their individual motives, they kind of just like, you know, formed this group think, this like one mind kind of deal, which I think is, you know, I've seen that happen multiple times with people. So I love that. So I think, we're probably getting towards the end here. Just before we go, I did want to talk about, real quick, about the science fiction aspect, because I feel like this book, more than the other two, is a little bit further into that sci-fi field. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, again, it's one of the aspects that's very incremental for the books, and that the first had a little bit, the second had a lot more, and this one has more, and especially more of kind of tropes you expect to see or maybe might be familiar, but then there's just new twists on it, and it's very put in a different context. But it's kind of like, it's like everything growing in the book, and as humanity is moving forward, and also as we've seen Hajar affect that development by his choices, it's affected how humanity has developed and pushed forward out into space and all that. And so, and we do see more of the technology, more things like that, and how it's now affecting humans and how they're using it. And it's almost like this rapid growth. Things are growing faster. So I think it's a lot of fun things to play with as an author, and it's very fun imaginatively. And I think you guys will enjoy it. But yeah. So, there's more.
Yeah. And that's even though, yes. And that's, I just want to say, even though it's like new and different from the other book, if you read book 1 and then skip forward to book 3 and skip book 2, like you would be like, wait, this is a whole new world. But it all feels very natural to the world, because it all comes out of this interaction between Jack and Hajar, and the consequences, just like you were saying, the consequences of their relationship, and especially of Hajar being the driving, maybe not the driving antagonistic force, but maybe the driving, kind of that force in the book. So,
yeah,
very,
so I
very
think
interesting, very natural.
It is very fun, and I think it's just interesting to see the series develop. Even as the first book, you're much more in Jack's head, in her world, and what's happening. And book 2, you back up a bit and see what's happening a bit more with the world and other people. And then book 3 is very much you're pulling back again, and now you're looking at it's a broader scope. You're looking at kind of before and after consequences of Hajar's choices, and you're looking at how that's affected so much more than we think. And so book 4 is just going to be like, 1,000 years long. It's going to be about the whole of humanity and the universe. I'm just kidding. It's not true. But so it's very incremental. Even stylistically, I think the books have an interesting incremental, even from the first one, which is done non-traditionally. It's done non-linearly, to reflect Jack's state of mind and what happened to her. And the book 2 is much more chronological and then this one is like, so that even stylistically they kind of advance in a certain progression, but it really sets you up to experience, I think, the progression, and it's an interesting experience to read them and get more and more involved and get to know the characters more, and so it's fun. I think you guys are going to enjoy it.
Yes, I am so excited to see all the reviews pop up, and I've already been kind of working on mine in my mind. This Monday on my blog, I'm going to be posting a review, and I'm going to keep it spoiler free. But yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it hitting market. Is there anything else you wanted to cover or talk about? Because I haven't been keeping track of time yet again, but I think we're probably...
Yeah, we can wrap it up here in a sec. I think I just want to say that as I try to put it in words. Now, I'm just, like I said, I'm excited for book 3. I think, if you haven't for some reason read books 1 and 2, you definitely should. There's just a delving deeper into the world, and I hope that I've just been able to draw you in where you feel like you're part of the relationships and the characters, and it becomes very personal, the journey. So it's not just a kind of abstract story. It's meant to be a very, for you guys to take ownership of it and feel like you're involved in the story, and enjoy and wrestle through with the characters. And I do want to say, because I think not everyone knows that I have announced it kind of informally, but there's plans for a book 4, so there's going to be a 4th one. And I'm excited about it. It's gonna. I mean, it won't come out super quickly. It will take me a little time, as the others have, but next year sometime, because there's more for the story of what needs to happen and go with. But I think I'm just really pleased with how I think I challenged myself in new ways with this book and did some bold things, but I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and I'm very proud of it. I'm thankful for all my wonderful readers who support me, and hope you guys enjoy it.
Yes, and definitely I mentioned it in the last video, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it again in case you haven't watched that one. Be sure to go check out all of the different places you can find Amy Dawson. Check out her website. Go pre-order the book. You have another week to pre-order it, and I believe the price is going up after that, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll go up.
Yeah.
So once it's published.
Yeah. So if you want it, or may abstractly want it sometime in the future, like now is the time to get it. Pre-order and also just pop over to the Phoenix Fiction Writers website, where you're going to be able to find more content from Amy Dawson and from multiple other people. So yeah, really appreciate you guys tuning in and hearing me fangirl about my critique partner's wonderful work. So
yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for helping me out with this video, Jill, and thanks for watching, guys. All right, bye-bye.